Today we'll be doing a follow-up to my first video that was talking about NBA teams with a uncertain future, but this time we'll be focusing on the present day, so this season, and how those teams underachieved the expectations that were set prior to the season. The Toronto Raptors are the first team that are underperforming according to expectations. Ever since they won the championship in 2019 with Kawhi Leonard, they have been considered as a team that has title aspirations every single year, and they have been in that conversation before Kawhi when they had DeRozan and Lowry as a duo. Since they won the championship, they've missed the playoff once and have exited the playoffs in the first round and in the conference semifinals in the other 2 years. But bringing it back to this season, they are currently ranked 12th and haven't shown the projected success they were supposed to have. Multiple preseason power rankings had them sitting at around 7 in the Eastern Conference, so they've dropped their underachieving by 5 spots. Now, this problem can be attributed to their key players missing games, because Scottie Barnes has missed 3 games as of today, which is January 9th. OG Anunoby has missed 4 games. Fred VanVleet has missed 8. Gary Trent Jr. has missed 7 games, and Spicy P has missed 10 games. So it's safe to say that the core hasn't played a whole lot of games together. They only played 19 games out of the 40 the team has played so far, and in those games the team has a record of 7-12 when the 5 key players all play together, which is not what you expect from those guys, especially when the expectation were that they would be a playoff team trying to compete for a title this year again. Those struggles can't be attributed to Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby, as both of them are having career years. The same could be said about Gary Trent, but Fred, on the other side, he's been a real liability for the Raptors this season. And Scottie Barnes won Rookie of the Year last year, was supposed to take a major leap this season, but he has somehow regressed from his rookie season, and he's also shooting the 3 so poorly that defenders are leaving him open, which doesn't help the offense, especially when VanVleet is shooting horribly and Siakam is not known as a big threat from 3. So before the deadline or during the summer, we will probably see them make a push to stay playoff contenders, or probably bust it open and rebuild with Scottie Barnes and the other young players they have on the roster. The next 2 teams won't be discussed in depth, as they are both in my first video regarding players with rough future, and those teams are the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Lakers. On the Timberwolves side, while they've been struggling, and it doesn't seem like this problem will be fixed anywhere soon, and, well, they had, maybe not the fans, because I believe people were pretty uncertain of what the Timberwolves would do this season. But according to what they had hoped, they have certainly underachieved. They were also seen as the 7th seed according to preseason power rankings, and they haven't lived up to those expectations, as we have seen them struggle throughout the first half of this season. The other team, the Lakers, are currently ranked 11 and were expected to still be a play-in team. The expectations were not necessarily as high as they were prior years, because people kind of realized that the fit wasn't necessarily good and the Lakers team would need a major reform. Also, the problem with those teams is that the Western Conference is so bad that the gap between being a 5th or even 6th seed and 12th seed is so small that it's hard to rank teams, because one team could go on a winning streak while a higher ranked team could lose 2 out of 3 games, and then the rankings will be all switched up. We'll be discussing that more later when we discuss another Western Conference team. As always, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like, as it helps out with the channel a lot. And let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas for future videos. The next team is the Chicago Bulls. Their expectation was not necessarily as high as others, because their core players were the same as last season, and we saw that last season they weren't necessarily championship contenders. But it's safe to say that by trading for Nikola Vucevic and signing DeMar DeRozan in the offseason later that year, they really tried to make a run for the title, but they have kind of been disappointing since. As of right now, they're ranked 9th in the Eastern Conference with a record below 500, which is good enough to get them in the play-in, but not necessarily a record that would make you think they could compete for a title this season. They also signed Zach LaVine to a huge contract, so it's safe to say that their situation will not get better anytime soon. They finished last season as the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, so there was hope that they could stay in a relatively similar situation or even get better. But with their current rankings, it's safe to say that this hasn't happened. People are blaming the poor play of Zach LaVine in the earlier part of the season for this debacle, but he has bounced back ever since. Of course, they're missing Lonzo Ball, which is a key player in terms of playmaking and the defense for them. But I don't know how impactful he would have been this season, especially since they seem to be lacking from the 3-point line, and it's not necessarily a specialty. Sadly for them, they seem to have lost the Vucevic trade, as Wendell Carter Jr. has shown to be a better player so far than Vucevic is. Now it's time to head back to the Western Conference and to discuss the team that was mentioned earlier, and this team is the Golden State Warriors. After winning the championship last season, they were expected to compete for the title again this season, despite a medium offseason, as they lost one of their key defensive contributor in Gary Payton. But in the earlier parts of the season, they haven't played at the championship level. Their away record was kind of laughed at earlier in the season, as they were the last team to get a road win. And Steph has been injured for over 10 games now, so the expectations for them kind of went down the drain. They also missed Andrew Wiggins a couple of games also this season. But they are now sitting at the 6th seed, but they are only 2 games away from being out of the play-in and being ranked 11th or 12th. So despite their recent success, it's not necessarily safe to say that they are back into title contention, but it's one of the teams in this video that I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run for the title again this season. The final Western Conference team is also one that was competing for the title in recent years, and this team is the Phoenix Suns. They are currently ranked 8th in the Western Conference after finishing 1st last year. Some of their key players have also been injured in Devin Booker and Cameron Johnson, as well as others, but the major part of their unfortunate downfall, if we could say that, is how Chris Paul's game has been decreasing this season at a faster rate than expected. And we can also attribute that to the fact that they matched the Pacers' offer this summer in order to retain DeAndre Ayton, and the situation seems to be still shaky. There was a viral clip going on the internet recently of Ayton and Monty Williams arguing, and it didn't seem like the positive argument where you feel like it's leadership or they're trying to get to a similar point and understand the other's opinion. It seemed like the feud that was discussed last year, which made the Suns hesitant to sign Ayton to an extension during the season. When all their players get healthy, they could possibly make a run, but that would mean that the chemistry would need to also improve, and CP3's game would have to do the same, which are 2 factors that I don't think will happen. So it's safe to say that this season, after being ranked in the top 2 Western team and also top 5 in the whole NBA in preseason power rankings, they've hit a major roadblock this season. Our final team is also one that was in the finals not long ago, and they are currently ranked 8th in their conference after also finishing 1st in the conference last season. And this team is the Miami Heat. Just looking at rankings and how they performed last season, it's possible to think that their situation is similar to the Phoenix Suns, but it's not necessarily exactly the same because players haven't regressed and there doesn't seem to be a chemistry problem or injury problem. Two of the main components to why they're struggling this season is one, they lost PJ Tucker in the summer. And he played a huge part of the rotation. So now players that were off the bench need to start games, and they lost some of their depth because players such as Max Strauss and or Gabe Vincent or even Caleb Martin are now starting after coming off the bench last season. The second point is that they are one of the worst offensive this season in terms of offensive rating and points per game. So despite them being a very good defensive team, they are not capable enough offensively to compete with teams when their defense lacks. Some of their offensive problems can be attributed to their 3-point shooting, as it's also one of the worst in the NBA so far this season. After giving Duncan Robinson a massive contract, they expected him to be their specialist, but ever since signing that contract, he has dramatically underperformed, and this is why he is in my recent video, if you want to go watch it, regarding underpaid and overpaid players. And their final problem is that their big three in Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and Tyler Hero is a pretty decent big three, but the drop-off between them and their rotational players is so big that when those players are on the bench, the rest of the rotation doesn't seem to be able to hold up for the team. That's it for today's, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments which teams do you disagree with and which team do you agree with. As always, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. And that being said, have a good one.